Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I have muted you just for the sake of background noise, but you do have the power to unmute yourselves as well. So I do love having that power to be the host. Just I can just shut everyone up. It's amazing. Welcome, everyone. My name is Matt Brown. I'm the Director of Admissions at St. Bernard School of Theology and Ministry. I am known as Matt the Lesser at St. Bernard's because the other Matthew, Dr. Matthew Cooner, who gave the intro to the last words of the wine and then the first words of the wine in May, he presented on Flannery O'Connor. So that's the joke, of course. Great guy. Right now, he can't be with us right now. So I'm incredibly excited to have the opportunity to introduce tonight's presenter, newly esteemed faculty member of St. Bernard's, Dr. Charles Hughes Huff. And he will be giving a presentation this evening on Fellini's film Strada. Also, too, I put this in the chat box. If any of you are having any audio difficulties, visual difficulties with Zoom, you can see Bernadette Bobrowski, our marketing coordinator's email in the chat box. So if you have any issues, please don't hesitate to give her an email. She is on standby assisting. So I'm going to jump right in to the agenda. Do this here. So for those of you who have been to a Words with Wine, this is the third one of our installment. And we welcome those if this is your first time being here. We give you a warm welcome. So this is going to look like the typical agenda. There's a few new things. I'm going to give a welcome, which I'm giving right now, a prayer and a toast. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce our new coordinator of development, and registrar and assistant to the dean, and a bunch of other titles, I'm sure, Sophia Zanowski. Quickly after that, I'm going to introduce Brother Lewis from the Abbey of New Clairvaux and Amy from the New Clairvaux Vineyards. A little bit after that, I will introduce Dr. Charles Hughes Huff with his presentation on Strada. He will give that, and then towards the end, well, I guess throughout the whole presentation, it's going to be more of a discussion based presentation, but there will be some time for Q&A. And then, of course, I'm going to give a good plug for the next one that we're doing these next August on August 13th at 7:30. We don't have a theme, we don't have a speaker yet, but we're working on that, and we will let you know. Let's see. All right. All righty. So after the initial presentation that Dr. Hughes Huff will give, there will be a small opportunity for discussion and Q&A during the whole presentation. There are two ways to ask questions on Zoom. Okay, so you are more than welcome when there's a good opportunity. When Dr. Hughes Huff is giving his presentation, you can unmute yourself and raise your hand, and you can have that discussion, that conversation. Or if you're a little bit shy and you don't want to talk, you are more than welcome to ask your question in the chat box below on Zoom. Let me just get out of here real quick. Perfect. I want you guys to see the logo and everything. So before we officially begin, I'd like to begin with a prayer. So if we can pray the Hail Mary prayer together. The Father, and the Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I would also like to give a toast. Of course, this is a big part of why these nights are so nice, because we're also drinking wine while we're discussing some great works. So if everyone has any wine, please feel free to raise your glass. And especially in thanks for the partnership with New Clairvaux Vineyards and the wine that they have provided us. Let's toast to this thankful opportunity of just being here together in community. Cheers. Drink up. So as you can see, we have two co-sponsors, and I represent one of them, St. Bernard's. And I would like, just like we usually do, just take a minute or two and introduce you a bit to St. Bernard's and what our mission is and what we're all about. These are just a few key points of information about St. Bernard's. We are a Catholic graduate school located in upstate New York. We have physical campuses in Rochester and Albany, though we serve students from all over the country with our distance learning education programs. We have a rich history at St. Bernard's. Some of you may know we used to be a seminary. In fact, Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen was our chancellor at one point when he was the Bishop of Rochester, which is really cool to say. If you have any questions about graduate programs, I am the director of admissions, and you can, if you're interested maybe in auditing a course or maybe taking a course for credit. I know some of you that I see are already students with us, and I'm sure can say some positive things about St. Bernard's anyways. I'm going to leave my email too in the chat box. So if you have any questions about enrolling or financial aid, please don't hesitate to give me an email. It's also really important to know as well, to give a good plug for Dr. Hughes Huff. He will be teaching 2 courses this fall 2020 semester, Sacred Scripture and Moral and Social Teaching. So if you are interested in those courses or more information on them, please let me or Dr. Hughes Huff know. I would also like to take this time to introduce our new coordinator of development, Sophia Zanowski, and she's going to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Matt. So like Matt said, my name is Sophia Zanowski, and I have multiple titles. I am the coordinator of development, also the registrar and assistant to the dean. I've been in these positions for all of 16 days now, and it's been a real privilege to get to meet varied members of our community, and I'm very honored to be here in this virtual space with you all. I did want to thank anyone quickly who donated when you registered for this event. It is very much appreciated. And then since we are in this virtual space, I thought I would share my screen with you and kind of direct you to our current COVID relief appeal that we're running to help get our institution and our students through these challenging times by the grace of God. And so if you go to our landing page here, stbernards.edu, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a giving box where you can give anything that you feel so inclined or able to give to that appeal. Anything is much appreciated. I will be speaking with any of you that are members of this community in my multiple positions, I'm sure, in the future. But for now, I'm very happy to be here to listen and learn with you all. I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophia. Let's see here. In the beginning, I was getting jumbled with how many titles she has. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's assistant. Oh my, like how many titles? It's fantastic. And obviously, as you can see, it's been 16 days. I feel like it's been even longer than that. Oh my goodness. Feels like she's been here for 6 months. So she's been doing a fantastic job here. We're really, really blessed to have her. And I don't know, I can't see everybody, but is Brother Lewis and Amy on?
Yes.
There we go, perfect. If you can give an intro to the Abbey and just about vocations, and then after that, Amy, talk about this fabulous wine, if you guys could.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Brother Luis. I'm one of the 16 members of the community here at New Clairvaux, and as you can read there's a lot of interesting things about New Clairvaux. But I'll just give you a little bit of sharing from my perspective. We're a contemplative community, and we are one of 10 men's communities in the U.S. We have 5 women's communities. We're exclusively devoted to contemplation. So I'll just give you a little active ministries. and men's communities and many active ministries. So our charism, our ministry to the world is experienced in a different way. We reach out to the world by reaching in deeply. So on that spiritual plane, that's where God allows us the privilege of effecting change in the world and edifying the body of Christ through God deeply. So on God's grace in and deeply. So on that's our contemplative ministry. So it's a very, I've been here 10 years, and edifying. One question that I'm asking with regard to vocations is, well, how do you know when you're called or if you're called to the monastic life? And to answer this question, I like to dip, and I share people that when I was 19, I had no idea what monastic life was. I had never been to a monastery, and some friends brought me up. And to put it in a few words, I came, I prayed, and I was conquered. Much like our experience of beauty, truth, and goodness through this wonderful internet, I was conquered. Like our experience, internet, the beauty in art, the truth in philosophy, or the goodness, say, of your sharing and your charity to all who participate in this, we are expanded. Our hearts are expanded. Our view of reality is expanded, and we come to know something new. Very similarly, when I encountered this monastic contemplative climate of prayer, my own heart was expanded, my own view, spiritual sight was expanded to see something new. And even though I hadn't been ever exposed to monastic life, when I came and experienced it, I had transformed, and God prepared me, capacitated me for something new. So that's what I like to share with people who ask, how do you know if you're called to monastic life? Well, you come, you experience, and when we come into contact with the divine, we always change in some way and always for the better. So it's an exciting thing to give oneself to the opportunity of encountering Christ in the monastic climate of prayer, especially here at Vineyard. And so I invite any one of you who are listening here today to share this opportunity to transform and be transformed by Christ, by God, in this contemplative experience. And there are numerous ways that people can get in contact with us on our website and come and visit us for that divine encounter, so that one might come, one might pray, and one might be conquered like I was. And with regard to our vineyards, it's just an awesome opportunity for us to be able to share the fruit of our very hard labor here at New Clairvaux. Our brothers are very proud of the work that we do with Amy, our wonderful winemaker, and it's just a privilege to be able to share the fruit of our labors with you. So thank you so much for allowing us to be endorsed by your program, by your theology school, and the community is very grateful. We carry you in our prayers, and please continue to pray for us in our labors in the vineyard and in the Lord's vineyard as well.
Thank you so much, Brother Lewis. I know I was here last time in the background when their last words with wine, and you gave an amazing pitch about the Abbey, and I'm like thinking to myself, man, if I weren't a married man, I think I would go, just after listening to you, I would be going to California and staying at least a month over there just to see what it's all about. So obviously you bring amazing blessings to that place. So we thank you sincerely. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Brother Lewis. Amy, if you want to say a few words about the vineyard itself.
Yeah, I can't top that, Luis. That was beautiful, very inspiring. I've known the monks for about 20 years now, and I must say I have been conquered too. I like to be very close. It's such an amazing spiritual place, and the monks there really just bring so much warmth to my heart, and I know that in my life I wanted to be close to that, and so that's what inspired me to try to be part of it as a winemaker, and I'm very honored that I get to be so blessed to be so close So anyways, Matt, thank you. Matt the Lesser, I love that. I will never forget that. And thank you for all you're bringing to this. And I really appreciate the opportunity to see all these lovely people and expand our virtual experience and get our name out there a little bit.
Absolutely, thank you so much. It's a blessing for me to be able to host this time and to be with you guys. So thank you. I also remember too, our last presenter from last month was of course our president of St. Bernard's, and he is here. I wanted to give a quick shout out. He's the man. He's muted right now, but he's waving. It's Dr. Stephen Laughlin. So wanted to give a shout out to him. Can't have the president without some acknowledgement to him. So thank you so much, Dr. Laughlin. Now is the big moment, the big time. So let me give you, go back here and give a good introduction here. Let's see, stop sharing. Here we go. So now it's time for a presenter, Dr. Charles Hughes Huff. Dr. Hughes Huff is Assistant Professor of Sacred Scripture at St. Bernard School of Theology and Ministry in Rochester, New York. Hughes Huff earned his PhD in Hebrew Bible and the Ancient Near East at the University of Chicago in 2019. He studies how ancient authors portray social practices and narratives and uses technical and metaphorical language to make ritual authoritative. He is also interested in how scholars rely on modern ethical stances to evaluate ancient Middle Eastern social practices, particularly punishments. Hughes Huff is an experienced teacher, and he cares deeply about pedagogy. He has taught courses in Bible, the reception of Bible in popular culture, ethics, and moral theology, social justice, and philosophy. That was my third page. I'm like, I know that there's more than just this. So theology, social justice, and philosophy. Outside the classroom, he enjoys wine and cycling, but not at that same time. Here, we wouldn't judge you if you did. So this is a good environment to try that out. Please welcome Dr. Hughes Huff. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Matt, for that introduction. Pleased to be here with you tonight, everybody, and I sure enjoyed the excellent presentations from Dr. Skinner and Laughlin the past couple of times, and it was really nice to see some good interaction there, and I appreciate you guys making it to this one after I chose a film that was only available on expensive film streaming services. I actually chose it because it was on YouTube, but I guess YouTube caught on to us and took it off. So unfortunately, it was a little harder to access this particular cultural object, and I'm grateful that you did. And we'll just have a little bit of a chat about it tonight. And that's what we're here for. So tonight we're talking about La Strada. It's a film made in 1954, and it is Federico Fellini's fourth film. And it's an example of a film tradition called Italian neorealism, but it goes beyond that. So it's an interesting film because it's Fellini himself who came up in the Italian neorealistic movement, branching out from that in ways that enraged other Italian neorealists. When he won a big award for this film in Italy, some folks who felt so betrayed actually started a fist fight with the producer of this film at the award ceremony. So it was a bit of a controversial film based on social things that were happening in Italy at that time. And it is the beginning of what film critics would refer to as the Fellini-esque film, his own style, right? So La Strada comes at this Italian neorealism thing and then becomes a Fellini-esque film. This is kind of the context I want to set this in. We're going to talk a little bit about Fellini. We're going to talk about Italian neorealism, and then elements of film that Fellini brought out that we think of as Fellini-esque elements in a film. And then we're going to turn back to La Strada and talk about the characters and the plot and the story, how it resonated with you as you watched it, and have some discussion. It'll be very straightforward. So first of all, this is the director, the creator of this film, writer and director of this film, Federico Fellini. He is a gentleman who lived from 1920 to 1993. He got his start in radio, writing scripts for funny comic radio bits. He also was a comic drawer. He drew comics and so on. Eventually, this led to a friendship with some famous Italian film writers and directors, and he started writing scripts for Rossellini, who is a Italian neorealist film director. And then he branched out and started making his own films. So that's Fellini, and then he became probably the most famous Italian filmmaker of the 20th century. He grew up in Rimini. This is a beach. It's a very famous beach in Italy. It's the heart of this Adriatic Sea beach community, Rimini. At this point, if you look at modern images, you can see thousands of beach chairs and umbrellas set up there. This is where Fellini grew up, on this beach community, where he would go out and stare at the ocean at night, and then he would turn around and go back into the city. And those two elements are frequent images in his films, the beach, the ocean, and the piazza. Those are part of his experience as a child and a young man. Fellini met his wife, Giulietta Messina, who stars in this film as Gelsomina. They met on a radio set where she was an actor and he was writing for the radio. And they got married, and they were married for 50 years until his death in 1993. So they were sort of a Italian power couple in this film industry for this period. He had some pre-La Strada films, Luce del Varieta, The White Sheik, and Vitelloni. These are films that he made, and made a bunch afterwards, but these films were more squarely in the tradition of Italian neorealistic films. And La Strada was the one that sort of branched out of that and started making his career something completely unique. Italian neorealism is what we're talking about as a setting for this film. And it is a film style that it's a film style that comes directly after the World War, right? So, and after fascism in Italy. So it's a response to and a rejection of fascism, and it has more of a Marxist kind of quality to it, although it's not just about that, but it's squarely in this working the common man, anti-big images, anti-epic, anti-anything that could be used to sort of portray the heroic strongman of the state. Mussolini, forget that, we're going to go a different direction. So this is a film style that favors documentary effects, real locations instead of sets, natural lighting, non-professional actors, a non-interventionist approach to film directing, so you let a lot of things happen as they happen and you just film it. An avoidance of complex editing and other post-production processes that focus attention on the contrivance of the film image. So you're not thinking about the thing is a film, you're just watching real life, is the idea. And a progressive political stance treating contemporary social problems like unemployment, the war, the partisan struggle, old age, strikes, the working class, etc. So this is Italian neorealism. Show the people as an image of the people, all right? I'm gonna contrast this with a film clip from something that is made around the same time as La Strada. This is a clip from The Ten Commandments, a Hollywood film from 1956, 1957, somewhere around there, a couple years after La Strada. And this is to set up as contrast to Italian neorealism, a Hollywood film that has none of the elements of Italian neorealism. Oop, see if I can get to play.
The Lord of hosts will do battle for us. Behold his mighty hand. God opens the sea with the blast of his nostrils. Lead them through the midst of the waters. His will be done. He opens the waters before them, and he bars our way with fire. Let us go from this place. Men cannot fight against a god. Better to die in battle with a god than live in shame. Praise God and down into it!
Okay, so that's the Ten Commandments. That's something you've probably seen before. It's an epic film style. It's a giant set, all right? So this is not filmed in a real location, but a giant set. We've got very stylized lighting, exactly where it's supposed to be. We've got professional actors, Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner, the two biggest actors of their era. They've got much after-shoot editing. The Red Sea here is a masterful, for the time, an incredible attempt or incredible feat of special effects that they videoed water in tanks over and over and then spliced it in over and over. It was a heavily edited special effects thing. You've got stylized mise en scène, these ladies looking at the Red Sea like they're in a Rembrandt painting, you know, exactly stylized. And even the procession, you can tell that people have been told, here's how you hold the cart, here's how you come around the wheel. Even the sort of chaos is very, very carefully stylized. And yeah, it's a traditional epic story played by America's leading man as Moses. And it's exemplary kind of thing. This is a inspiring portrayal of a man that we should emulate, right? This kind of epic film. All right, so that's sort of the standard in Hollywood at this time. This is a huge version of that, very expensive version of that by Cecil B. DeMille, and it was hugely successful, one of the highest grossing films of all time. Here's an example of an Italian neorealist clip from the film Bicycle Thieves.
Corri, dai, corri! Ma perché il tunnel, l'ho detto io! Corri! Che c'è? Beh, deve essere sbagliato, eppure ero proprio convinto che avessi preso d'altra parte. Vabbè, mo ricontinuare. Che io infatti.
So we have here a clip. I was trying to pause there. It didn't work with my Zoom connection, but we have a clip of this man who you can see looking at this wheel in front of you, who is trying to find his bicycle after someone steals it. And in the story of this film, another very famous film, he has lost his, he's lost his job. He's trying to get a job hanging these billboard advertisements. He has to have a bike to do the job. He goes into debt essentially to get the bike, and then this person steals the bike, and he goes through all of this trouble to try to get it back. Eventually, at the end of the film, he tries to steal a bike himself from someone else. The film is, in that moment, we have this subtle swelling of music, of sad music, and we see his face there where he's staring into the screen, and you get him in the full frame, is one of the things is comparable to that Charlton Heston image of Moses lifting his face and staring it up into the Red Sea, but very different because this guy is not a hero. He is the working man. He is all working men. He is the working class is what I'm saying here. And he, it's interesting that when this film came into America, people commonly referred to it. In fact, it's sometimes formally titled as The Bicycle Thief, even though in the Italian, it's Bicycle Thieves, because this is a story about all of these poor working class people who turn to stealing because they're poor, not him turning into a thief. That's not the story of the one man as an individual, it's a story of the entire working class. Whereas something like the Ten Commandments is about Moses as a hero, right? And you can see from this clip, the camera shot trails the actors in a documentary kind of fashion, as if they just happened to be there. The film is filmed in a real location rather than a set. There's natural lighting going on. The father and son in this film, the son doesn't feature prominently in that clip, but they're the two main characters. They're both non-professional actors. This guy here who we watched, he was a factory worker. They picked him up to act in this film. After he did this film, he went back to the factory. And eventually the factory fired him because he had missed so much time for the film. We don't see any complex editing or special effects, and the film focuses on the plight of the working class. Importantly, using characters as a social type rather than as individuals as individuals. It's not the story of this one guy, but him as a story of a working class man and as a kind of political commentary. So that's Italian realism, by contrast to something very different from it, the Ten Commandments. Do I have a chat going on? Oh yeah, great, there it is. Matt, just make sure I wasn't missing a question. All right, so some of Fellini's pre-La Strada films, they were mostly Italian realism in style. He was already sort of branching out a little bit, but they would have fit in the window of Italian neorealism at that time, and that he was considered to be an Italian neorealist auteur. But with La Strada, Fellini goes a slightly different direction. He draws on elements of Italian neorealism, which is why I'm even talking about this. These elements include real places, not sets, natural light, use of non-professional actors, not in the main roles, but in all of the small roles. They're non-professional actors. it focuses kind of on everyday life in Italy, more on the outskirts of everyday life in Italy. This sort of bizarre set and the fabulistic quality of it comes from some of the characters that are not sort of just everyday, you know, the circus characters, the highways and byways kind of characters that they meet throughout the film. They're not like just sort of part of everyday Italian life that you would think of, but they are set. They're supposed to be in actual Italian places, doing actual Italian things. But he also uses non-neorealistic elements, like having professional actors in the main roles, but also use of poetic symbols, this haunting music, leitmotif that goes through, that informs the plot, and a strong focus on the human soul. So this is a film about the psychology of humans, about how people feel and how they relate. It's about redemption or not. It's about feeling, it's about types of people, but that they're very real people, right? And it's about individuals. So it's a turn away from the sort of political message of Italian neorealism toward his own interest in the big questions and his own feelings and his own life. He also uses some traditional elements that made some of the Italian neorealistic movement very upset, like the incorporation of the Catholic Church, which for them was a sort of conservative traditionalism that they were trying to throw off, and some of the focus on redemption stuff that comes out that feels rather Christian, although not straightforwardly so, we'll probably see. The result isn't Hollywood or Italian neorealism, it's something slightly something else. It's what we call Fellini-esque. So what are these kinds of elements across the Fellini films moving forward, which I should have made a list of and didn't, but La Strada, 8.5, La Dolce Vita, and so on. These later films use a lot of these elements, not in every one, but you'll see these over and over in Fellini's films. Use of circus performers and people in paint, face paint for clown paint and that kind of thing. Use of the beach and ocean as liminal space, beginnings and endings, trying to find the meaning in something, the inability to find meaning in something. That is often connected to the beach and the ocean. What we mean by liminal is that sort of place between places. So that's the beach and the ocean in Fellini. Travel along roads as a symbol of the journey of life. Of course, very prominent in this film. La Strada means the road, right? So that's a major focus here, but also in his other films. Humans suspended in midair, or objects suspended in midair, as a sort of symbol of humanity between the ground and the heavens. Church processions, and so on. So I'm going to show you a few images of these in our thing. So circus, we've got circus performers throughout this. We've got all of them lined up here together at the circus. We've got beaches. Here's the opening shot of the film. Gelsomina is out here along the beach at the beginning, and the closing shot of the film, Zampano on his face in the beach sand. Very different lighting, both natural lighting, but as appropriate to these two figures. You've got the travel as a symbol of journey along the road in this astonishing Zampano wagon on the motorcycle. So we've got this journey that she takes the first time that Gelsomina leaves Zampano, goes out onto the road by herself, and she follows this random troupe of musicians into town. That turns into a procession of a church festival, and that turns into her first encounter with Il Matto, the fool who's doing a high wire act. Here's another marching scene from a later film, 8½, and this is this has all these both the circus elements and the music elements and the marching elements all together in the one scene. Here is a man suspended between earth and heaven. Il Matto, this is our introduction to this character, the fool, who is, Il Matto means the fool, and he is walking along the tightrope here to have a dinner. He's got wings on, so he wears these wings, and he is sort of a figure suspended between earth and heaven. Famously, the opening scene of La Dolce Vita starts with a helicopter carrying this Christ statue, all for this long scene of him just floating midair. All right, so it's another symbolic image. And here we have the church procession that follows the long walk into the town. So in the Strada, we have poetic imagery. It's a fable-like story. It's not simply a one person developing in a plot. It's not a near-realistic story about what's happening in everyday life. It's more like a fable. It's not as clear-cut as some fairy tales, I wouldn't say. It's a little more ambiguous. The characters are somewhat ambiguous. But it is a fable-like sense nonetheless, sort of a poetic lyrical fable. It's got clowns and stock characters as individuals. So every character, each of the three characters in this are clowns and portrayed as clowns, right? Both Zampano, though his primary act is a strongman act, he puts on clown makeup and does clown routines. So does Gelsomina, and so does Il Matto. They're all three of them are clowns. Of course, the journey here is really important, not because we're waiting to see if they arrive at some particular destination, but because the relationships between the characters and the growth of the characters is developed by this journey. And finally, there's this use of music as a really powerful development of relationship and character, where Il Matto teaches her a tune that she then plays to symbolize her love for Zampano and so on. So you have this passing on of meaning via music. Written by the very famous Italian composer Nino Rota. Okay, so I have now talked quite a bit to sort of set this up, and I'd like to ask you now to join me in talking about this film. And I'd like to start with this question. How would you describe the three main characters in La Strada? Zampano, Gelsomina, and Il Matto. You don't have to do them in order. You can do all three of them if you like. Anyone would like to share how you describe them?
Can you hear me? Yes, yes? Okay. This was my first Fellini movie. Okay? Okay. I said this was my first Fellini movie, and it won't be my last Fellini movie. This movie was so touching. I was incredibly moved by this for so many different reasons. But I've always been intrigued for at least the past 25 years with the fool in literature, or the madman. And I mean, there are just so many times, and I'm watching this movie, and all of a sudden I began to think of Elie Wiesel, because in his book Night, he has the madman, who the people think is a fool. And, this idea of the fool seeing reality, knowing exactly what's going on. And so I was very taken with the clown or the fool here, who I often find in a lot of the literature dies a tragic death, and he's the one who understands what's happening to Gelsomina. He sees her reality. So I see him in that light, and Fellini's wife, who plays Gelsomina, I just could not stop looking at her face. I mean, such an innocent. And the thing I read online was at her funeral, she had them play the theme by Rota at her funeral, the trumpet song.
And at both their funerals.
And I was like, oh my goodness. But I've always been taken with this idea of the clown or the fool, and how Nietzsche has his madman, the character that sees what nobody else can see.
Thank you. Yes, that's yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that very thing. I think that's right. Yep. Thank you. So we have both of them are fools in their own way, right? Yeah, good. Thank you. Anyone else? Let's see. If you do want to talk, just lead in with the mic off, and I'm trying to scan all the faces, but don't be shy.
And you can unmute yourself too, just so you guys know.
Yep.
If you want to ask a question.
Okay, so that's right. Nancy hit on something that was actually the point I wanted to make about these characters, which was how they are as fools. And I think that's right, that we have one character called the fool, the clown, and then we have all of them wearing this clown makeup. And I was thinking of them as fools and holy fools. I think of Gelsomina as a holy fool, which is a literary trope. That they're usually portrayed as someone who is lacking in some sort of typical social knowledge. And sometimes I read a lot of reviews of this in preparation for this talk. I read all of the reviews that came out in the 1950s, and then there was a 50th year anniversary thing where there's a lot of reviews. And then it's interesting to see reviewers say, this actor did a bad job. One reviewer said because she's supposed to be mentally handicapped, but she seemed to sometimes have awareness of what she was doing in a certain way. I said, I think you've seen the wrong film here. I don't know that the point is that she's mentally handicapped. I don't know that that's the main focus. She seems to be lacking in typical social knowledge in a way that indicates, we want to sort of diagnose it in our current frame and say, where on what spectrum does she fall? But I think the point here is this literary idea of people who are lacking somehow in typical social knowledge, but make up for it with a special ability to love, to see deeply, and also to communicate with nature. Throughout the film, she is communicating with nature in a way that other people can't. She sees things. She suddenly is planting seeds in a field. She's playing with insects. She's hearing music. She seems to be connected with nature. She can walk into the room where the children are trying to get her to make this actually mentally handicapped boy laugh, and she, put this little act on him, and then she sees him. She walks forward, and she's like, they connect. There's a moment of connection between them. There's this ability to see, to communicate, to love, and they're pure of heart. That's what we think of. And then this is a thing in the tradition. I thought of Dostoevsky's Alyosha, the Brothers Karamazov, Prince Mishkin in The Idiot. Celine and Elif Batuman's The Idiot, which is another novel named after Dostoevsky's novel. Elif Batuman is a scholar of Russian literature and a novelist. And at the origin of the tradition, St. Francis, a holy fool who communicates with animals and seems to everyone around him to be kind of doing idiotic things, but he is attuned to a special calling, right? So she seems to play this role as a foil to normal humans and to her person, her man, her husband, I guess, Zampano, in a certain way, but that's the way she's a fool. She's a holy fool, right? Whereas our fool Il Mato is another kind of fool, which I think Sister Nancy was pointing out. The parallels that you raised there were fantastic, and I also thought of Shakespearean fools who are able to strike to the heart of the matter, to brashly antagonize a powerful person, to sort of see everything. The fool in these settings is normally someone who does not have much power or authority, but sees everything the best and is the smartest person in the room. That's actually what this guy is in this film. He sees the hilarity of Zampano's routine. Everyone else sort of takes it sort of seriously for some reason. And he's like, this is ridiculous. This is so funny. And he makes fun of him and he ends up dying. But he is right. He's the only person who fully sees Gelsomina for who he is. Okay, and Zampano is another kind of fool that's not as much of a literary trope as a fool. So I'm just now playing with the term, but he is a brute. He is a brutish person who is led by his appetites. He doesn't seem to experience normal human emotion. If Gelsomina doesn't experience normal social interactions, Zampano doesn't experience the general normal human emotion until he does. So he does at the end. Okay, so he's, except for maybe anger, the main thing is what he feels is anger. All right. So more questions for you. How would you describe the relationship between each of these three characters? How would you describe the relationship between these characters in the film?
I'll talk again if nobody else wants to.
Thank you.
You need to know I spend most of my life watching movies. That's a very good question. I mean, I'm looking at I can never remember her name, Gelsomina, and then Anthony Quinn, and initially I would say a love-hate, but I think it's much deeper than that. And I think it seemed to me there were times she really cared about him. Of course, he's a little slower on figuring out what he thinks about her until the very end, perhaps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think her relationship to the fool, he brings her joy and makes her feel valuable, where Anthony Zapata makes her feel terrible because he is a brute. But they're all interconnected somehow. They all impact the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think, people impact our lives a lot, and we don't even realize how much they do impact our lives. And I think Anthony Quinn is probably the slowest of the three to realize how the other two have impacted his life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a comment.
Yes, Rose, thank you.
I viewed this film as Fellini showing us how, for lack of a better term, the other half lives in poverty, that they're trapped. They have nowhere to go. They have no exit. This is their life. She I thought was an abused woman, and that he was, for lack of a better term, a male chauvinist. And there was no other. There were no options for her, and that for him, that was the custom of the male, that he was strong and that he was what he was supposed to be, the stereotype of a strong man, and she's his woman, and she has no other place to go. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, no, that's good. So thank you, Rose. And that's definitely a part of this is what I'm hearing you say is, you know, they are coming from a social situation. And I think that's really important too. That is part of this whole neorealistic thing that he's driving from. He is not portraying people, his characters in this film are not from the upper echelons of society. They're not, none of them are exactly emulatable per se in terms of all their life. And then, yes, we definitely have an abusive marriage here, an abusive, he buys her and then she becomes his woman. They're not per se married, but they're, he's abusive, he's chauvinist, and perhaps goes a little bit beyond even the normal Italian male chauvinists of his era in his brutality. But yes, they are stuck with each other a little bit. And we're going to come back to that question about her choosing to return to him and why and all that. Good. And I think that's an answer to the second question too, Rose, that the conflict driving the story. We've got a triangle of relationships. We've got conflict between the Zampano and Gelsomina, where he wants to just abuse her in certain ways and go on his merry way, have other women, have his meals. She, though, keeps demanding that he treat her, hear her, listen to her, count for her. And then you have the conflict between the fool and Zampano as well. Did you have anything to add to that, Nancy? I saw your...
I'm just agreeing with everybody.
Okay, good. Sure. Yeah, so you have that conflict that's driving it. The conflict between, and then Gelsomina trying to decide whether she can be happy or not, you know, and it's just not a thing that Zampano cares too much about. If anyone would like to share any scenes that struck you as particularly important?
I can speak to that.
Okay, yes, thank you.
I think, so in terms of scenes, I thought it really came together when, and I don't remember Gelsomina was talking with the fool and, you know, calling herself nothing, and how he sort of brought to light for her, even this pebble has a use, is important for something. And so he sort of brought that into her, brought that to light for her. Throughout the movie, I found myself thinking of how the three characters really portrayed humanity. I mean, Gelsomina and Zampano, I don't think either one of them even could think of themselves as human. You know, he was such a brute, but I don't think he knew what relationship is. I don't think he had ever experienced relationship, so he couldn't even care for himself. And then, I mean, when she described herself as nothing, that sort of explained how she saw herself. But then when she started asking him about Rosa and really, cared enough to ask him questions and to mostly about her sister, but I think that sort of planted the seed that humanity matters. We care for one another, and so by the end of the film, you can see that she had touched him a little bit. So I don't know. Throughout the whole thing, I just found myself thinking, this is a great portrayal of humanity and what happens to so many, and what could happen to any one of us when based depending on what our experiences are.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add on to that.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I saw the movie back in either the 56 or 58 when it had subtitles. But the picture I have in my mind is where she gets into the back of whatever you call that vehicle that they're staying in, the makeshift trailer or tent or whatever it is. And I'm thinking, here is this poor, innocent, probably disabled young lady getting into the back of this, whatever it is, with this, whatever you would, subhuman being, I would call him, Anthony Quinn. And I'm thinking, is that all there is in life for this young lady, that she's going to spend her time with him in the back of this makeshift tent? And that's the vision I have left in my mind of La Strada.
Sorry, I missed the last thing you said there, Rose.
That's the vision I have left from the 50s of La Strada, is that one scene of their getting in the back of that vehicle.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It really is a low point. It's a very sad point.
It is very sad. Yeah, that was a hard scene to watch, honestly. Okay. Good. Thank you. That's really wonderful. What about so we talk about a terrible scene like that one. Okay. So, and then the abandonment scene where he leaves her in her mourning for the fool, and the sort of pivoting, the turning point scene that Amanda raised with the Pebble speech, which we're going to look at a little bit more closely, actually. But and then there are these moments for Gelsomina where she finds joy, right? There's just like these poetic moments where she finds spontaneous joy. There are several of those scenes. Did any of those sort of resonate with any of you that you would like to speak to?
Well, I thought in the very beginning, after she finds out that her sister has died and that whole scene with her mother, at first I was like, how is she feeling like right now? Like, she's sad? Is she like afraid to go? But then all of a sudden, when she turns away from her mother and she walks away, like, she like is excited and is like, at least this is my perception of it. Like, she was happy, but she didn't want to show them that she was happy. Like, I'm being freed in a way, but I don't want them to see it, whether it was because of love for her mother or, just her not feeling like she could express her emotions, because that's kind of how she was pegged. But that was one of the first things that struck me, was like, so she's excited, she's happy because she feels in a way like she's being freed from the life that she's in now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
I think she was very happy when she was with the children.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think it's because they didn't judge her. They just loved what she did. Mm-hmm. And she could be the innocent or the person that doesn't quite get it with them, because they're the innocent and they don't quite get it either. So I think that they ministered to her in a lot of ways, and I think she was happy with them.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Yeah, those moments where she's with children, they resonate with each other, children and Jessamina. She also, yeah, good. And I meant to point this out when I was talking about her. This is an image of her right as she goes down, she joins that church parade, she gets pushed this way, she gets pushed that way, and then she gets pushed against this wall, and there's a shot of her, she's looking up at the processional Eucharistic cross, and she's framed by this Immaculate Virgin poster behind her. I'm sorry, Madonna. So interesting, these kinds of framings where she gets, and that also, another time this comes up is when she's talking with the nuns at the convent, and the nun says that she also has to move from place to place because her superior doesn't want her to stay in one place for too long, become worldly. And she says, so we're both of us follow our husbands or follow our God, depending on the translation, which I meant to go look that up because I watched one subtitle that said gods and one said husbands. I need to go look up the Italian, but I don't know Italian, to be very clear, so I'd have to. But at any rate, the notion that which is interesting about that is that she's just left Zampano at that scene where she's up against the wall, she's having this religious experience, she encounters the fool. The scene with the convent, she's just decided her vocation is to pursue Zampano and to love Zampano. And the nun resonates, immediately sees that and says, we're shared, we have a vocation. My vocation leads me to travel down the road in ways I don't fully understand. Your vocation, commitment to this man keeps you traveling from place to place as well. And that she becomes uncomfortable. Her face is uncomfortable. This is one of the most expressive faces in any movie I've ever seen. It's marvelously acted with this sort of coming out of the silent era of film style acting that she does, Charlie Chaplin kind of thing, but also more emotional breadth, I feel. Incredibly active. But she says, she starts to express like discomfort with this idea, which is amped up when Zampano repays the nuns for their hospitality by stealing their silver, right? So she's very upset by that. And that leads almost directly to the next scene after they travel down the road through various vistas, through her own subjectivity. Those travel shots are coming through her eyes. But then they encounter the fool and Zampano kills him. So, and she's lost at that point. Her vocation is led to complete sorrow. Okay, so that is, that's good. So thank you. Those scenes are all important. She finds these moments of joy. There are other ones, and children is a strong one. And various scenes are too. So, and the scene that Amanda pointed out is the scene I want to focus on now, which is that in this crucial moment, the second time that Jessamina has decided, is contemplating leaving Zampano, she meets up in the piazza at night with, just like she met him for the first time in the piazza at night. And he assures her that everything has a purpose. Okay, so I'm going to play that scene because I think we have enough time. Yeah, I want to play that scene and then we're going to discuss that to end off. Okay, you know what? I am not going to play that scene because I accidentally closed that tab. It would take me a good 3 minutes to pull it back up, and I'm just going to pretend that I didn't intend to show that scene. We're not going to watch that scene because I've lost it. But it's
Charles, it looks like Thomas has his hand raised. I was wondering if he had a question before you.
Oh yeah, good. Let's see that. Thomas, do you have your question?
Actually, going back to the scenes.
Yes, please. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry I missed you. Yeah.
No, that's okay. You know, I did see this film years ago when I was taking an art course with film and dance and writing and everything at RIT. I watched it today, as a matter of fact, and I was brought to tears several times. But I know the theme of loneliness too, and how these people deal with it, and the stark, austere scenes, landscapes. I don't think you could do this film in color. I think black and white fit it very nicely. And the other thing is, there was one scene I remember. I love the little scenes, like the three musicians coming by, and she perks up, and her mood is changed. You know, I worked with people with developmental disabilities, and they have such a beautiful. It's a culture all their own, a beautiful innocence, and you see that in Gelsomia, though she has some real maturity there. And now there's one scene I want to mention, the scene where the fool is teaching Gelsomia the skit with the trombone. Now I remember seeing a little more extensive scene in that, where she follows him all around, and you know, he keeps trying to get away from her with the violin. Now, is it possible there's different versions that leave little things like that out, or am I?
That's interesting. Thomas, where did you watch something? Where were you watching it?
Maybe I saw it years later on TV too. I don't know, but it seemed to remember there's a little more.
What about the one? Which one did you watch today?
What?
Which one did you watch today?
One from HBO. HBO.
Yeah. I'll check on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll check on that. See if there's been I know Scorsese did a remastering of it. I didn't think he cut anything from it, but I'll look into it. That's a good question. Yeah. Scorsese did do a remastering of it in the 90s for digital as an homage to the film, and it was reissued. But I didn't know that he edited it in any way. Maybe he did. Yeah, thank you, Thomas. I love that scene too, where she travels behind the musicians, marches into town, and the learning of that tune is beautiful as well. Yeah, Thank you. Good. So we'll go to the next one. So in this scene that Amanda described for us, and so well that we don't need to watch it, Il Mato meets Gelsomina in the middle of the piazza, and they have a conversation. He talks about how he can't help but tease Zampano. He just can't resist it, and he's such a bore, and he just has to tease him. And then he says, "What are you all about? Why are you with him? And do you love him, or what is it?" And then she says, "It doesn't matter if I go with him. It doesn't matter if I stay here. I don't matter to anyone. I have no worth, essentially." And he says, everything has a purpose. Each of these pebbles has a purpose. Stars have a purpose. Every human life has a purpose. If this pebble doesn't have a purpose, then it's all pointless. Everything or nothing. And it's everything. So you have a purpose. You just have to decide what that is. And he says, I think what yours is to love Zampano, because he sees her. He would like for her to just jump ship and come with him, but he sees that there's a connection between them, and he says, you do what you want, but you have a purpose. So she says, okay, that's right. And she decides to pursue and to try to love and connect with abusive Zampano as her purpose, or Zampano, sorry. So that's a very central scene leading to the conclusion of the film. Did that turn out well for Gelsomino? What do you think? Straightforwardly, okay, so I had two reactions, and the reason I'm going down this line of and here, so let's ask all these questions at once. Did that turn out well for Gelsomino? How did this element of the story sit with you? And do you think that this is a fable about Christian love, self-sacrificial love, in some way? Why or why not? One reason I chose this film is that it reminds me of some ways of something like Good Man is Hard to Find, which is what Dr. Kuhn chose for the first Words with Wine, where you have these big moments and decisions about grace and pivoting points and redemptions of souls in the final hour or not, and that kind of thing. And to a certain degree, Gelsomino loves Zampano like the mother loves the misfit at the last scene of that short story. But here, she's going after it, she's pursuing it, she's trying to do the right thing, she's finding her purpose and meaning. But the result for her is pretty devastating, fairly straightforwardly. And so what do we think about this for her? And is this a fable about grace, Christian grace and love, where we, like Christ, sacrifice self for the love of other people? Or is it more ambiguous than that and more difficult than that? What do you think as you watch this?
I think if Jesus had a role in this movie, he would have gone to Gelsomino and said, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Then he would have slit the tires of Zampano's truck.
Okay, yeah, good. Right.
Because she's used, you know, and like so many people in the world who are abused, they go back to the one who abuses them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, she has a beautiful heart, but she's being abused.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think that, and I think if Jesus' mother was in the scene, she'd be even worse. So she would not be happy at all. So I think it's another little tragedy that her love doesn't get responded to.
Yep, good, thank you. Thank you.
I have a comment on that. My feeling is that she being disabled, we don't know what her home life was like as a child. She seems to be a child herself. And the abused go back, as he said, they go back to their abuser because for some reason there appears to be security there. They know what to expect. They don't know any other way except that. I grew up in a family with a mother and traditional mother and father that loved each other, that respected each other. Money wasn't an issue. But these people in this story have absolutely nothing. They're just so poor. And who knows what an abusive childhood they have to date before they met each other. And her being an abused woman is a part of their culture, or the people that they interact with on a day-to-day basis. that might be the climate or the culture that they live within. That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And if Christ and everybody has a purpose on earth. I don't know what I'm still doing here. I know there must be a reason for my being here, or I would have passed a long time ago. There has to be a reason for every plant, animal, person, and we just don't know what it is yet. And I think that maybe this film is just something to show us how people live and to develop a little empathy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you on both. Is there anyone else? I don't want to miss any raised hands.
I'll just add that, you know, she taking Zampato out of the picture, if we're able to do that, she found, going back to something Teresa said early in our conversation, she found something she loved, which she would never have been exposed to in her life with her family. She loved the art. She said that the first time she left him, I'm not leaving because of the work. I love the, I forget what she called herself, but like an artist. I love the work. It was because of him that she left. So it did not, it was very tragic when it ended. She could have been happy, and I feel like she could have been happy if she had gone with the troupe, you know, to continue the work in a positive environment. So no, I don't think it ended well. And I do hope, you know, when Zampato was following up like 5 years later or so with the lady who had, the lady that knew of Gelsomina, where they had given her shelter and she played the trumpet for them and stuff, and she was, you know, the lady described her as a vagabond and just played the trumpet to show her thanks. Talked about how still hurt and disturbed she was by the tragedy of Zampato killing the fool, and she never recovered from that. So it was just tragic. It was just tragic because she had found some semblance of happiness if she had followed that instead of Zampato.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I agree with all of you. It's like, and it's important to separate these two ideas. Zampato, the Pebble speech is beautiful, and like I think that's what resonated with everyone, that there is this purpose, and choosing to love someone is beautiful. There's nothing. How it turned out doesn't invalidate her purity of heart, but it is at the same time a tragedy because she does do that thing of deciding that her vocation is to love an abusive man, which is a difficult thing to watch, and ends in her heartbreak, a true heartbreak. So yeah, there's a complexity here. She's already doubting this decision very quickly with him before he even kills the fool, and it's a difficult way to pursue another person in a way that did damage her. There's definitely truth to that, but also truth to the fool's speech about everything having a purpose, and that her value is in her, and her purpose is intrinsic to her, you know. So that's good. Finally, I wanted to show, we're actually kind of running out of time, so let me just ask these last two questions from the final scene. Zampano here gets drunk after he hears this story. He says, I don't need anyone, I don't need anyone. He goes into the ocean, splashes some water on his face, comes out here and collapses on the sand. All right, so we're all charmed to death by Gelsomina. We're not charmed by this guy. Do you think this is a redemption story or a tragedy for Zampano? Has he been in some way here touched by grace and love? It's finally sunk in, and this is a new chapter of his life? Or is this him realizing it's too late? What do you think?
I don't think it's too late, but I think he's a manipulator. So who knows what he's trying to achieve there by laying prostrate on the ground. I don't feel sorry for him, and I don't think he's repented. So.
Okay, good. Sister Nancy.
I actually watched this scene first because I went on YouTube and this had English subtitles. But I immediately thought of baptism when he went into the water and you know, threw it on himself, which sort of surprised me actually. And then I thought of St. Peter, who after he betrayed Christ just lost it, you know, and just sobbed and sobbed. So I think he was redeemed by pain, and I don't think his pain is ever going to leave him. But I think the potential for redemption is there and is always there.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. I like that take. The potential for redemption is there and is always there. Seems like a good way to end this discussion. I'm going to say that's a finish. Are there any other questions that you have for me about the film? Any other comments you'd like to make, or any other questions in general? I thank you so much for watching an old Italian film with me and having this discussion, and for showing up tonight. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. That was really great.
Enjoyed it.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Matthew, you're all out? We're all good?
We're all good. Just one quick plug. Again, our next Words with Wine is going to be August 13th on a Thursday, and you will be receiving more information soon about the theme and the presenter. So have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Question. I had a question.
Yep.
Did you say that he graduated from somewhere in 1919?
2019. 2019.
Oh, I thought, oh my, he looks much younger than that.
Yes, I'm quite.
Some of his age.
Benjamin Button.
No. All right.
I couldn't resist
Everyone,
that.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great evening.